It's been a little over a year since I got involved with the CannaSense Collective, and in that time I've allowed the majority of my energy and focus to be diverted to it with the cause it stands for. For the most part, my entire professional life, and to be honest, what little private life I had has been swallowed up by this whale of an effort, and I hope to one day look back with pride at playing the part that I have in its building and hopefully its expansion. What I find odd about the CannaSense crusade is that its simplicity is often misunderstood or scoffed at by Americans that ought to know better. So, this 420, I decided that it might behoove some for me to craft and hone what I would consider to be an unofficial CannaSense creed. First and foremost, the beating heart of CannaSense is American patriotism and support for the constitutional republic established in our founding documents. Most of the individuals that either conceptualized or played major roles within the building of CannaSense haven't been able to morally vote in an election since Ron Paul retired. Things like individual liberty, personal rights, and on occasion civil disobedience are not foreign or alien to us. Those things are what make the blood rush through our veins. We believe in the supremacy of law, and that such a law overrides, overrules, and makes null any inferior law that comes in contradiction of the Constitution and our natural rights. Marbury v. Madison, 5 U.S. 137. We also believe that the Bill of Rights and the Constitution lean heavily in the corner of the American citizen and serves to bind government, not man. We believe that if the citizen can pull a right from the Constitution, then the Constitution must be literally interpreted in favor of the citizen. Byers v. United States, 273 U.S. 128. Following the same logic, we also believe that no state is authorized by the Constitution to convert any secured liberty into a privilege and issue a license and a fee for it, and if they do, we as Americans can disregard such impositions and enjoy our rights with impunity. Murdoch v. Pennsylvania, 319 U.S. 105, and Shuttlesworth v. Alabama, 373 U.S. 262. We believe that ultimately it matters not what corporate lawyers who operate in a funhouse of legalese think of our Constitution or the hierarchy of law, so much as what we the people think. Of course, what good would come from just thinking about these things without doing something as well? What good is hailing from the land of liberty while not in some way embodying within our day-to-day lives the assumption of rights without explanation or permission from the state? Isn't this attitude most critical when it comes to one's health and well-being? After all, didn't Thomas Jefferson say, "If people let the government decide what foods they eat and what medicines they take, their bodies will soon be in as sorry a state as the souls of those who live under tyranny"? It is these principles that CannaSense was founded on and will move forward with if it is to succeed in the endeavor it is on. Secondarily, CannaSense is not a business, nor is it just a website. CannaSense is a mutual benefit, nonprofit corporation, as well as a California medical cannabis collective as outlined in the Compassionate Use Act of 1996. Perhaps more importantly than that, CannaSense is a family. Each and every one of its members has been touched by things like depression, anxiety, PTSD, to physical ailments or chemical addictions. And each and every one of its members has come to discover that cannabis assists them in being able to overcome their individual infirmities and live at a higher quality of life. For those in our collective with less debilitating purposes for cannabis use, they understand and have been educated in the fact that we are all born with an endocannabinoid system with receptors that know exactly what to do with THC and CBD. The human body itself is crafted in the womb, needing cannabis consumption in a sense. Our family also believes that this symbiotic relationship between man and cannabis falls under the whole concept of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness or well-being, while others among us simply stand on our First Amendment and the free expression of our individual spiritual beliefs. Either way, each member of the CannaSense Collective has visited a California doctor and received a valid California medical cannabis recommendation. This enables them to join our California Collective. What is perhaps unique about our collective is that while we are California-based, we have patients in all 50 states. I myself reside in Georgia, a state very unfriendly to cannabis, but nevertheless bound to recognize and honor my status as a California patient within a California collective due to Article 4, Section 1 of the Constitution. How we are able to bring residents of all 50 states to a California doctor en masse is through the Affordable Health Care Act, which gave us telemedicine and defined a virtual visit to a doctor's office to be a valid and lawful visit. This is the simple trifecta of the CannaSense model: the Compassionate Use Act of 1996, the Affordable Health Care Act, and Article 4, Section 1 of the Constitution. It is truly as simple as get your doctor's recommendation, have your recommendation verified by the collective, and then get access to your medicine via the CannaSense portal. What makes this model even more brilliant is its appeal to the highest law, which every American should know and understand, over the maritime law of the corporate members of the Bar Association that typically have a tough time wrapping their heads around the simplicity of our supreme law in this country. The biggest objection or challenge to the CannaSense model that I receive is the delivery of medicine to the valid patient that may be in another state. This aspect drops more jaws, raises more eyebrows, and lifts more voices to the aid of the state than I have ever heard in even the most heated of political debates. Typically, the person objecting will throw in that, quote, marijuana is a Schedule I drug and shipping across state lines is a federal offense, end quote. To this, I reply that stating marijuana or cannabis is a Schedule I narcotic is an outright fraudulent statement. Any enforcement of cannabis as a Schedule I narcotic is done under color of law on the part of the state and apathy and ignorance on the part of the citizen. Cannabis does not meet the requirements of a Schedule I drug according to the Controlled Substance Act and therefore should not be ranked within Schedule I. Just because the DEA conveniently has forgotten to update their schedule does not make this any less true. One of the requirements for a Schedule I drug is that it has no known medical uses. This requirement is like one leg on a footstool. If this one leg is knocked out from underneath, the footstool will not stand. Besides the multiple patents the federal government has filed for cannabis for its medical uses, in April of 2017, the National Institute of Health, a government entity, stated on their own websites that cannabis is effective in helping addicts overcome opiate use, is effective in reducing pain, inflammation, controlling seizures, and possibly even in treating mental illness. They even go on to state that cannabis can be effective in killing cancer cells. So, on one hand, you have a branch of the federal government saying it has no known medical use, while another branch is saying that it has multiple medical uses. One cancels out the other. And since we already know that the Constitution must be liberally interpreted in favor of the citizen, cannabis has been removed from the DEA's most wanted list by none other than the federal government, regardless of if they are aware of this or not. With our government admitting it is medicinal and buying patents to back that truth up, the most important leg of the Schedule I footstool is a non-issue. However, even if this were not the case, and cannabis was indeed a Schedule I drug, the legal framework for valid California patients throughout the country to have access to their medicine is still protected by the supreme law of the land. The Commerce Clause, found in Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution, is often cited as the federal government's regulatory authority over interstate commerce, and that's all well and good. However, CannaSense is not conducting commerce. CannaSense is a 501c3 mutual benefit nonprofit corporation. Of course, time and apathy have twisted the meaning of the word regulate from its original meaning, which is to make regular or encourage, not control with an iron fist. Furthermore, the scope of the regulation is clearly stated to be with foreign nations, the several states, and with Indian tribes, not the people. What always boggles my mind, as well as the insistence that a state line is somehow federal territory, when Article 1, Section 8 also states that territory controlled by the federal government is limited to the 10 square miles of Washington, D.C., forts, ports, magazines, arsenals, dockyards, and other needful buildings. Nowhere in that section is a state line considered to be federal territory. But even if we put our tongues in our cheek regarding what our laws actually are and say, yeah, but to immediately abnegate our rights and the rights of our fellow man to what corporate lawyers throw at our Constitution through statutes and acts, the United Nations Single Convention on Narcotic Drugs, 1961, has already discussed the matter of importing, exporting, and shipping, quote, narcotic drugs, end quote, for research and medical purposes. My frustration with this issue comes in the form of a few questions. How much more in the right does CannaSense need to be in regards to getting sick people the medicine they need? How many lawyers must be educated in the Constitution before they give us their permission to operate within the law? How many Americans must shake off their apathy and ignorance in regards to these topics before those of us who are illuminated feel we have some sort of happy majority to do the things we already possess a right to do? What magical senator, congressman, or president are we waiting for to descend from the clouds with golden tablets in hand, granting us specific verbiage to feel comfortable about operating as Americans? And even when we find that none of the parameters for these questions is likely to ever be fulfilled, do we have the courage to disregard all of that and simply do the right thing anyway? How can we expect for our offspring and the generations on their way to inherit our country in any other way but shambles if we do not begin to take care of ourselves right now in this moment? What audacity would we have if we know what the problems in our country are, but refuse to do anything to remedy them, especially when we have the peaceful and lawful means to do so? The CannaSense model was designed to be simple. Get your recommendation, get your membership, get your medicine, and then get well. I urge each and every member to know and walk in the philosophy that our collective is built upon, and in doing so, our collective will always remain simple enough for even the sickest to find their way to wellness.